Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another amazing topic of conversation. Thank you to our sponsors, the Health Channel, and please sign up for their newsletter for a healthy lifestyle at allhealthgo.com. For your chef in you, all the tools you need at finkelmans.com. And our new sponsor, Alexa's Workspaces. If you need a virtual office, a real office, or just a boardroom, Alexa's Workspaces.com is the perfect place to go. On another note, from the Power of the Heels, tomorrow we have our first networking of the year at 8:30 in the morning at the AC Hotel in Aventura. We're going live again, and we're looking forward to leaving that meeting re-energized, refocused, and reimagined. So please register at indigoevents.net, and we'll see you Thursday. So Marcy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Gladys. It's a pleasure to be on your show today.
I wanted to invite you because besides you work with Hotwire, your community and association relations, and you wrote a very interesting book. So please show everybody your book because I know that takes a lot of effort. Yes, there. Common Sense Community Manager, and you can find it on Amazon.
Yes, it's Common Sense Community Management. It's a guide from a Florida condo HOA manager, board member, and a business partner.
So the reason I wanted to invite you to this conversation is because after what happened in Surfside, like there was a big conversation regarding complaints regarding that the board members want to remodel or want to spend money when, for example, the carpet or the flooring is perfect and they just want to spend money. So that was my first question. As a resident of a community, I know that there has been, it is a whole process. So you have all the points of view. You have from a manager and from a board member on why the remodeling, why do we need to do this if, for example, our building looks okay?
Well, there's certain exterior and interior upgrades that you need to keep up with. And first, I would suggest you get a reserve study. And that reserve study is your map for you to be able to plan ahead for any upgrades that the building is going to need. And also, the board of directors has a fiduciary responsibility to the members of the association as elected members to maintain and protect the community, which also is, it's important that they add value because it's competitive. And when you speak to realtors, they'll say, well, if there's a building down the street that's remodeled their lobby and you still have the old 80s lobby, you know, is a potential buyer going to buy it your building or the one that's updated? So you have to look at those things. And when it comes to having the funds and setting aside reserves in your budget, that's also very important.
So I totally understand. It's very competitive, and I understand for security reasons, like after the Champlain Towers, now people are looking at it on a very different way. Well, like it was totally different on how we're looking at it today for some repairs that really need to be done.
Well, a lot of times what I found in my experience in management, the lobby was more of a priority in maintaining and remodeling than protecting the structure. And the funds have to be set aside for both. They're both very important, but the structural integrity of the building actually comes first. So when it comes to deciding whether you should remodel the lobby or take care of the structure, I would suggest you take care of the structure first.
But so what happened with the chaplain, and I want to go back so we can understand, is that there was an immediate problem that years went by before taking care of. How do you convince the people from one side that they agreed to do it and on the other? And then when the second assessment, when the second quote was given to them, it was not 9 million, but 14 million. So that completely threw it overboard.
Well, now with the new legislation, there's no question and there's no doubt that these condominium associations are going to be required to set aside, and with the reserve requirements, they're going to be required to conduct those milestone inspections, and they're going to be required to set aside those reserves. And once they receive their engineering reports, they're going to be required to perform the maintenance and repairs.
Okay, another question that I had for you is that, and we recently, a couple of years ago, we went through the remodeling of our building, and literally it took 3 years to pass it because half the building was in favor, half the building was in not favor, and other people see it as, oh, the board wants to spend money and the manager wants to spend money so they can pocket some of proceeds of the whole assessment. So talk to me about transparency.
Transparency is really, really important. And that's why I always say that everything should be conducted at an open board meeting. When there's a vote of the membership, I mean, if there's sometimes there's a required vote of the membership, depending on the documents. And if it's just a vote of the board, then again, everything should be open. And especially nowadays with the requirement of a website, they should have everything uploaded, the minutes of all the meetings, so that everyone has access to the information and it's transparent. In addition, being a manager, I think it's important to communicate with your residents and let them know this is coming. And here it went out to bid, and give them a timeline so they're prepared.
But there are some ways, for example, that the carpet looks perfectly fine and they decide to change the carpet. So some people are saying, okay, they want to change the carpet because either the manager or somebody on the board wants to bucket something. What is the whole deal behind it? Like, how can you avoid that? When I was the commissioner, those were the biggest complaints that I had.
I suggest that the association conduct a town hall meeting and invite their association attorney as a representative to field some of those questions.
All right, that's a good way of putting it. The other part was, how do you convince half of the building? Like, what is your tactic to convince half of the building that they need or they want to do a remodel? And as you say, to be competitive.
Well, I think it's important for the board to interview designers and for those designers to give a presentation and talk about the return on the investment and compare other associations that have seen that return on that investment.
Okay, and I imagine you act as a buffer between two sides, or you have to step back and just listen.
I would say both. I mean, in my opinion, from my experience of over 20 years of managing associations, I did a lot of research when it came time to remodeling the buildings. And I would meet with other managers. I would have my board members meet with other board members. I definitely think it's important to have a committee set up. So those are your constituents, your peers, and they're going to be your best representatives.
Yeah, but sometimes there is like a cliquey group that they don't let in others. It's like a whole manipulative thing that they want to control. So it's like a very hard managing that kind of situation. How were you able to do it?
Well, I would invite members to attend those committee meetings so everyone has a say. Everyone is able to give their opinion. Everyone should be able to, I mean, and there were some people that were against it, but then they turned it around and they were convinced after they heard both sides of the stories.
That's a good thing. So Marcy, I'm gonna ask you, you have a whole study on bullying in your book. I imagine that you have been bullied by the board members, by residents, by vendors. Like you are the punch ball, the punch bag for every single problem that happens in an association.
Yeah, I used to say that some days I need a bulletproof vest to come to work, and unfortunately, and I don't want to make jokes about this because recently we've had some tragedies, and it's unfortunate that we've lost board members, we've lost managers to shootings, and it's become a serious situation. And with mental health and with people that are with high emotions and associations, it's unfortunate that this conduct is happening. It's very unhealthy. And disgruntled homeowners, they are known to challenge the manager. They're known to challenge board decisions. They're known to harass you. They're known to harass board members. I mean, they chastise the manager. They fight with residents. They have their own self agendas, and they are considered bullies. So, I mean, there's many types of bullying. There's physical bullying. There's the ones that are behind the keyboard, the cyberbullying. There's been physical bullying. I've had situations where I had residents throwing chairs at one another. I had to call in law enforcement at those board meetings to stand at the door. We've had to pass policies that there are no guns permitted at these meetings. It's really demeaning. It's extremely degrading. And, the bully feels very powerful, very strong, and needs to be in control. And they are a threat to an association. It can be very abusive. But I find that it's important to have a private one-on-one talk with that person and find out what is the root of the problem. It may not even be that they're upset about the association. They may be having a situation in their own personal life. I mean, a face-to-face conversation is better rather than over the phone. It's always better to take a positive approach and reinforce that communication with that person.
So if you take the call over the phone, it escalates versus taking the meeting in person?
I find that happens a lot because on the phone you really can't get to the person. And a lot of times they'll start screaming over the phone. And a lot of times I'll say, look, this is not a conversation. I'm here to help you. I'm listening. I understand your frustration, but why don't we set up a meeting and have a one-on-one and let's talk it out? That seems to work a lot better. And then we can discuss the facts and stick to the facts. And I mean, because they're, rather than criticize their behavior, it's not going to happen unless we are in person. I find face-to-face communication works a lot better.
How about bullying from the board members?
With the board members, I find that if I ask targeted questions and I find out what their concerns are, then they're less condescending. When they find out that I'm asking them, why are they attacking me? Why are they belittling me? I find that it shows that I'm taking account what they're saying, and I'll take responsibility. When I was managing, I said, look, if you just stay calm and tell me what the problem is, I'll support you. I'll listen to you. You really have to maintain your composure when you're a manager, and take a deep breath and just come across friendly and professional, because a lot of times they just want to push your buttons and see you get out of control.
For what? For what reason?
Because they want to pick a fight, and they want to see you get frustrated. Just because.
But if you get frustrated, then you leave. That's the problem. And then somebody else comes. So nothing gets done, because you change over and over.
Well, that's why I strongly recommend for board of directors to come up with a code of conduct and a code of ethics and their mission statement and what their vision is, and require everyone to sign it and agree. So when an individual gets out of hand, you have the right to remove that person from, well, you can always do a recall, but if they're an officer, you can always remove them and demote them as a director. I mean, it's important to review the governing documents as well. And if you're with a management company, there's HR policies, and hopefully the management company's HR department will support the manager. And sometimes if they can't come to any type of resolution, it's unfortunate, but there's always the option to remove the manager and transfer them somewhere else if the board or the majority of the board feels they're not the right fit.
But I understand that part, but from your part, dealing with the whole board, have you ever had an experience where everyone was a bully, or it's always the one person?
In my experience, there always seems to be that one person that they want to be heard and they like to complain, and they just don't want to be a team player. That's
the whole thing, being a team player.
I mean, I've read the book Emotional Intelligence, and I highly recommend it. And it's by Travis Bradbury and Jean Graves. And it really helps us understand how people tick and how they're wired. It's important to have a level of respect, and it's important to understand that we will have our differences of opinion and we can agree to disagree.
Correct. And we're all wired differently. But you said exactly a very important word: respect.
Yeah, it doesn't give the person the right to be tough on you or be disruptive.
Or you can be tough, but respect.
Or disrespectful and difficult. And there's got to be a level of respect. I mean, you may not be able to totally change their behavior, but you can set boundaries and you can create a better environment if you have that conversation and not tolerate that unruly behavior or disrupting the association's business. But you really have to set those boundaries. And if you're a manager and you're going through this, you need to have the support of the other board members.
That's important. That's totally, totally important.
Because there are so many good managers out there that either quit or ask for transfers for those reasons. And it's unfortunate.
Because they cannot get along with the one person, right?
Right. It's one person that creates havoc and chaos unnecessarily. It's not fair. It really isn't. So that's why the board code of conduct, which an association attorney can draft something up where everyone is on the same page. And if that one person is unruly, then they can actually adopt that person can be removed.
How have you dealt with situations when a resident is a bully because they feel entitled? They literally feel entitled that because you're working for the association, it's like they own you. They own you.
Oh, we've, in my past, in my management career, we've had to actually ban residents from coming to the office because they've been so disruptive and they've interfered with the ability for the manager to conduct the daily operations.
So for that, you also need the board support.
Correct.
Got it. Marcy, I wish I had more time to ask you a million more questions, but we don't. And for anybody, regardless if they are on the board or a resident, get Marcy's book on Amazon. Marcy, thank you so, so much. And to everyone, have a wonderful day. And above all, stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Until next week.